Global surveillance by category. This is a category of disclosures related to global surveillance. Court orders, memos, and policy documents. Memorandum of Understanding between the NSA and the Israel Sigint National Unit ISNU. April 2013 FISC order demanding that Verizon hand over all telephony metadata to NSA. The order had been initially granted in May 2006. In 2009, the FISC discovered that the government had made repeated and substantial misrepresentations to the court about its use, and had routinely been running queries of the metadata using querying terms that did not meet the required standard for querying. It further concluded that the violations had been routine and systematic. Legal justification of the bulk telephony metadata collection officially released. 2009 NSA procedures for targeting foreigners for surveillance. 2009 NSA procedures for minimizing collection on U.S. persons. 2011 NSA procedures for minimizing collection on U.S. persons officially released reference to a 2011 change in the court-approved minimization procedures allowing analysts to run search queries using U.S. persons identifiers. If there is effective oversight by NSA, it is not publicly known if such oversight has been established or if any such searches have been conducted. The court order mentioned was later officially released. October 2011 court decision finding NSA upstream collection program, which collected tens of thousands of non-target communications, to have violated the law. It held, citing multiple Supreme Court precedents, that the Fourth Amendment applies to the contents of all communications, whatever the means they are papers. It also finds that the NSA minimization and targeting policies to be legally and/or constitutionally deficient, and recommends changes. Officially released. Additional findings. The collection of upstream data had begun before a court order approving it, in violation of 50 U.S.C. SS 18-0 Minia, which makes it a crime to engage in, use, or disseminate surveillance knowing or having reason to know such surveillance was not authorized. March 2009 FISC ruling showing a consistent pattern of misrepresentations of the bulk telephone metadata collection program by the government to the court. It also held that the data was being routinely queried in ways that did not meet reasonable articulatable suspicion, demonstrating inadequate safeguards in the software and training of analysts. Showing that thousands of violations resulted from the use of identifiers that were not RAS approved by analysts who were not even aware that they were accessing BR metadata, and that in 2006 there was no single person in the NSA who had a complete understanding of the BR FISA system architecture, a situation which persisted until February 2009 or later. RAS is shorthand for reasonable articulatable suspicion. The court nonetheless reapproved the collection of bulk phone metadata, while mandating additional safeguards and training, and end-to-end system engineering reviews and reports from the review. Officially released by court order. October 2012 Presidential Policy Directive 20 PPD 20, Outlining Cyber Warfare. 2007 Michael Mukasey Memo Proposing Broader Powers. April 2013 List of U.S. spying targets and topics by priority. The top priority countries are Iran, Russia, China, Pakistan, North Korea, and Afghanistan. Germany, France, the European Union, and Japan are mid-level priorities. Italy and Spain rank lower. FY 2013 Intelligence Black Budget Summary. A Memorandum of Understanding concerning U.S. sharing of raw SIGINT with Israel. The data has not been scrubbed to eliminate U.S. persons. It asks Israel not to deliberately target U.S. persons. However, the agreement allows Israel to retain U.S. person data for 1 full year. The memorandum is not legally binding. A separate document states, and there are other kinds of CI threats that are right on our midst. For example, one of NSA's biggest threats is actually from friendly intelligence services like Israel. It continues balancing the SIGINT exchange between US and Israeli needs has been a constant challenge. In the last decade, it arguably tilted heavily in favor of Israeli security concerns. 9/11 came and went, and with NSA only true third-party CT relationship being almost entirely driven by the needs of the partner. September 13, 2013 Fisk Court order declassifying all the legal opinions relating to Section 215 of the Patriot Act written after May 2011 not already the subject of Freedom of Information Act litigation. The FISA court ruled that the White House must identify the opinions in question by October 4, 2013. 1,000 pages of documents were released by James R. Clapper Jr. on November 19, 2013 in response to lawsuits filed by the American Civil Liberties Union and the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and a directive by U.S. President Barack Obama. Among the documents are what appeared to be the original court document authorizing the National Security Agency to conduct sweeping collections of Americans' electronic communications records for counterterrorism purposes, the NSA failure to abide by court-imposed rules to protect Americans' privacy, reports to Congress, training slides and regulations issued under President Obama. December 16, 2013 ruling by U.S. District Court Judge for the District of Columbia Richard Leon declaring that the mass collection of metadata of Americans' telephone records by the National Security Agency probably violates the Fourth Amendment prohibition unreasonable searches and seizures. Leon granted the request for a preliminary injunction that blocks the collection of phone data for two private plaintiffs, Larry Klayman, a conservative lawyer, and Charles Strange, father of a cryptologist killed in Afghanistan when his helicopter was shot down in 2011, and ordered the government to destroy any of their records that have been gathered. But the judge stayed action on his ruling pending a government appeal, recognizing in his 68-page opinion the significant national security interests at stake in this case and the novelty of the constitutional issues. 2013 1227 ruling by U.S. District Judge William H. Pauley Roman III in New York City holding the U.S. government's global telephone data gathering system is needed to thwart potential terrorist attacks, and that it can only work if everyone's calls are swept in. In his opinion, he wrote, "A bulk telephony metadata collection program is a wide net that could find and isolate gossamer contacts among suspected terrorists in an ocean of seemingly disconnected data," and noted that a similar collection of data prior to 9/11 might have prevented the attack. U.S. District Judge William H. Pauley Roman III also ruled that Congress legally set up the program and that it does not violate anyone's constitutional rights. The judge also concluded that the telephone data being swept up by NSA did not belong to telephone users but to the telephone companies. And further, he ruled that when NSA obtains such data from the telephone companies and then probes into it to find links between callers and potential terrorists, this further use of the data was not even a search under the Fourth Amendment. He also concluded that the controlling precedent is Smith v. Maryland. Reports 2009 OIG report on StellarWind. Extracts from reports relating to X-Keyscore. One entitled Tales from the Land of Brothers Grimm and others detailing the successes of said software. Another is a note from an analyst who felt that he always had one foot in prison when using it. X-Keyscore is also described as big and scary. Reports detailing thousands of privacy violations. Numerous reports relating to drones, including threats to unmanned aerial vehicles. A report summarizing attempts to shoot down intercept, control, or otherwise spoof drones. While the report details vulnerabilities of specific aircraft, the document itself has not been published, but only excerpts described. Other reports detail American spin efforts, suggesting that the phrases drone strike kill list, robot warfare, aerial assassins be avoided, offering lethal UAV operations instead, and also terms like preemptive and preventive military action and inherent right of self-defense. Likewise, reports detail efforts by al-Qaeda to spin, portraying attacks as cowardly and immoral. Analysts also questioned whether America was losing rhetorical battle in courts, media, and public opinion. Another report stated that drone strikes could be brought under increased scrutiny, perceived to be illegitimate, openly resisted, or undermined. The U.S. learned that Pakistan engaged in a pattern of extrajudicial killings, mostly against militants. However, not all targets militants. Pakistan also planned to murder a human rights activist, Asma Jahangir, while she was on a visit to India. The plot was aborted when she learned of it. The U.S. sought to avoid public disclosure of this and other incidents. The NSA and GCHQ have access to user data in iPhones, BlackBerries, and Android phones. They are able to read almost all smartphone information, including SMS, location, emails, and notes. The following table describes what is known about the below SIGINT activity designators SIGINTs. It is not presumed to be complete. Note, SIGINTs not otherwise designated are presumed to operate under the legal authority of Section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act FAA. Cyber hit counts. No explanation has been provided in the source material. Directory ONBER. No explanation has been provided in the source material. DNI, Digital Network Intelligence. DNR, Dial Number Recognition. MARINA, an NSA database of Internet metadata. Timing advances. No explanation has been provided in the source material. Transit Authority, a legal authority that states communications that transit the United States are collectible, provided that both endpoints are foreign. Collection and analysis programs or hardware. Boundless informant computer program that physically performs the data collection. Dropmeyer, a program that specifically targets foreign embassies and diplomats. X-Keyscore, a program which allows searching collected data in a variety of ways. ShellTrumpet, a metadata program that targets international communications. Unified Targeting Tool UTT, a graphical front-end for querying databases. Lopers, a software-based system to spy on PSTNs. Turbulence includes cyber warfare capabilities such as targeting enemies with malware. Updates to existing knowledge. Juggernaut, a system to intercept mobile networks, including voice, fax, data, and text. Spider. ChalkFun. VLR Visitor Location Register. TransX. Ragtime, a blanket term for any of 4 different surveillance programs. Special Collection Service, Joint CIA/NSA, eavesdropping team focused based in about 80 U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. There are known branches in Frankfurt and Vienna. According to Der Spiegel, many of their operations are a direct violation of at least 3 signed treaties: the Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations of 1946, the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961, and signed an agreement in 1947 that rules out all undercover operations. Stateroom surveillance on embassies and consulates. Highly classified. Bull Run, named after the Battle of Bull Run. Bull Run refers to the NSA set of code-breaking capabilities, including the use of computer network exploitation hacking to obtain keys, weakening of encryption standards, and providing backdoors to the same. The following code names are known to be related to Bull Run: aperiodic, ambulant, anti, painted eagle, Pauli's, Pitchford, Pendleton, Picaresque, and Piedmont. No further explanation of the above code names has been provided to date. Treasure map, near real-time, interactive map of the global Internet. Collects Wi-Fi network and geolocation data, and the traffic of 30-50 million unique Internet addresses. It can reveal the location and owner of a computer, mobile device, or router on a daily basis. NSA boasts that the program can map any device, anywhere, all the time. Relationships with corporate partners. Special Source Operations (SSO) is a division of the NSA responsible for all programs which collaborate with corporate entities. Upstream collects data from fiber optic cables and Internet backbones. Code names of companies participating in Upstream: Blarney, a surveillance program which was established by the NSA with AT&T and which operates at or near key fiber optic landing points in the U.S. to capture foreign communications coming in and out of the country. Stormbrew, Fairview, a highly classified program for tapping into the world's intercontinental fiber optic cables according to NSA whistleblower Thomas Andrews Drake, and Oakstar. There are conflicting sources, some that call these programs versus the official statement called the National Security Agency, missions, authorities, oversight, and partnerships that describes them as code names of cooperating companies. A third source, just released, groups them with describes them programs authorized to collect cable transit traffic passing through U.S. gateways, with both sides of the communication being foreign. The FY 2013 budget for the above programs is as follows: Blarney $65, 96 million. Fairview $94, 6 million. Stormbrew $46, 6 million. Oakstar $9, 41 million. Miscellaneous code names of companies: Lithium. Rampart described as being part of Special Source Operations. There is at least one known subdivision. Rampart T started in 1991 or earlier. Documents describe this program as penetration of hard targets at or near leadership level. The information is intended for the President and his national security advisors. Rampart T is aimed at China, Russia, and Eastern European countries. There are around 20 nations targeted. Microsoft allows the NSA to bypass encryption on Outlook.com. Names and code names of companies assisting GCHQ. Verizon Business, codenamed Dacron. British Telecommunications, codenamed Remedy. Vodafone Cable, codenamed Gerontic. Global Crossing, codenamed Pinnage. Level 3, codenamed Little. Viatal, codenamed Vitreous. Interrouti, codenamed Streetcar. NSA databases. Pinwhale stores email and text. Nucleon stores voice data. Mainway stores telephony metadata, i.e. call records. Marina stores internet metadata. Traffic Thief stores metadata from a subset of assigned targets. Cloud/Aber. Dishfire. FastScope. Sigint Navigator. TrackFin, a database of financial information. Tuning Fork. Octave, a database with a graphical front-end. Anchory, a database of completed Sigint reports. Nimrod, apparently a database of names, appears in UTT screenshot. Signals Intelligence Directorates SID. Printora, according to Ambinder, NSA unit involved in data filtering for Traffic Thief. Protocol exploitation sorts data types into specific databases. Technical Directorates. Scissors, this team sorts data types for analysis. Names associated with specific targets. Apalache equals the EU mission by the East River in New York. Pathy equals the EU Embassy in Washington, D.C. This embassy had its internal video conferencing and other areas of the computer network tapped. both by the US and by the Chinese. The US effort was conducted by the team working for the Blarney program. Wabash equals French diplomatic office in Washington. This office was bugged. Blackfoot equals French diplomatic office in the UN in New York. This office was bugged and computer screen captures obtained. Catil equals Brazilian embassy in Washington. Pocomoke equals Brazilian permanent mission to the UN in New York. Uncategorized or insufficiently described code names. Surf call most sown. Conveyance provides filtering for Prism. Evololive collects internet traffic and data. Facelift. Fallout provides filtering for Prism. Long haul involved in the process of decrypting communications. Matrix. Moonlight Path. Spinneret. Steel Knight. Passport. Dancing Ghosties. GCHQ operations. The Government Communications Headquarters GCHQ is the main British intelligence agency responsible for providing signals intelligence, SIGINT and information assurance to the British government and armed forces. Tempora collects data from transatlantic fiber optic cables of major telecommunications corporations by directly tapping on them and from Internet backbones. Tempora uses intercepts on the fiber optic cables that make up the backbone of the Internet to gain access to swaths of Internet users' personal data. The intercepts are placed in the United Kingdom and overseas, with the knowledge of companies owning either the cables or landing stations. It is a GCHQ program to create a large-scale Internet buffer which stores Internet content for 3 days and metadata for up to 30 days. Its component programs are Mastering the Internet and Global Telecoms Exploitation. Karma Police Internet Metadata Collection Program designed to profile the web browsing habits of every visible user on the Internet. Britain runs a large-scale intercept station in the Middle East, capable of tapping underwater fiber optic cables and satellites, and extracting email, telephone, and web traffic. The information is then passed to the GCHQ and shared with the NSA. The operation costs around $1 billion and is still being assembled. It is part of the Tempora project. Edward Snowden disputes the independent's claim that he, or anyone he has had direct contact with, is the source of this information. Sunwich Zeitung's fiber optic revelations were also described as having been obtained from GCWiki by Snowden. GCHQ is believed to have forced some 6 global telecommunications and Internet companies to allow them to access more than 14 fiber optic cables that transport telephone communications. The 6 companies, BT, Vodafone, Viatel, Interauti, Verizon, and Level 3, gave GCHQ access to the cables in return for payment. It is believed the companies had no choice in this decision. 3 of the cable's terminal stations are on German territory. 2 of the cables are partially owned by Deutsche Telekom, who have denied knowledge of or participation in GCHQ's activities. Spying on the 2009 G20 summit in London. GCWiki and internal wiki at GCHQ. Access to the majority of Internet and telephone communications throughout Europe and occasionally as far as the United States. GCHQ has a team dedicated to cracking encrypted traffic on Hotmail, Google. The Belgian telecom company Belgacom reports that it had been hacked and has filed criminal charges and will be cooperating with the investigation into the hacking. The inquiry has shown that the hacking was only possible by an intruder with significant financial and logistic means, they said. This fact, combined with the technical complexity of the hacking and the scale on which it occurred, points towards international state-sponsored cyber espionage. According to documents released by Der Spiegel, the operation against Belgacom was entitled Operation Socialist and was done by the GCHQ for the purpose of enabling man-in-the-middle attacks against smartphones. Edgehill, named after the Battle of Edgehill, is a program operated by GCHQ similar to the NSA Bull Run program. Other programs operated jointly with the NSA include Muscular, Dishfire, Stateroom, and Optic Nerve GCHQ. Other programs include Squeaky Dolphin, Warrior Pride, and X-Keyscore. Organizational groups within GCHQ include the Human Science Operations Cell, the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group, and the Joint Operations Cell. NSA Operations. Hacking Tsinghua University, and also PACNET in China. Spying on Latin America with the help of Global Crossing. The NSA operates the Global Monitoring Network Special Collection Service that collects from more than 80 embassies and consulates worldwide, often without the knowledge or consent of the host country. The NSA spied on a UN video conferencing system, in violation of the U.S. agreement with the UN not to do so. In the process, NSA discovered that the Chinese had already done so, and then started analyzing what the Chinese were taking. Shortly thereafter, the NSA gained access to approximately 500 other UN channels of communications. Additional details of the raid on Osama bin Laden's Abbottabad, Pakistan compound. The work of tailored access operations in installing spyware on phones is highlighted. Also highlighted are the roles of the CIA, other agencies, and the Navy SEALs. The NSA Network Analysis Center cracked the reservation system for Aeroflot and also hacked Al Jazeera, accessing specially protected material, according to a document dated in 2006. The NSA hacked the French Foreign Ministry and bugged the French diplomatic offices in Washington and New York in 2010. The NSA conducted extensive spying on Enrique Pena Nieto and his aides, accessing their emails. Likewise, the NSA spied on the communications of Dilma Rousseff and her aides, and also created a two-hop contact graph. The source document is dated June 2012. It is unclear whether the operation is ongoing. The NSA and GCHQ target banks and credit card companies by various means, including tailored access operations, specifically by targeting printer traffic from banks. Visa has also been targeted. According to a GCHQ document, the collection involves bulk data containing rich personal information that is mostly not about our targets. From collection points outside the United States, the NSA gathers contact lists belonging to users of email and instant messaging services, including Yahoo, Hotmail, Facebook, and Gmail. NSA relationships with foreign intelligence services. Payments to GCHQ from NSA totaling at least $100 million. Relationships with Germany's BND, exchange of technology X-Keyscore, and the German programs and bulk metadata 500 million records in 1 month alone. The U.S. directly spies on most of its allies, even those with intelligence sharing agreements, with only the Five Eyes being immune. Suggested protective measures from surveillance. Encryption. In cryptography, encryption is the process of encoding information in such a way that eavesdroppers or hackers cannot read it, but that authorized parties can. According to Snowden's recommendations published by The Guardian Edward in September 2013, properly implemented strong crypto systems were among the few things which one can rely on. However, endpoint security is often too weak to prevent the NSA from finding ways around it. Underground bunkers. In September 2013, it was reported by the press that a number of countries deemed by the U.S. and its allies to be rogue states, such as Syria, Iran, and North Korea, had successfully evaded U.S. government surveillance by constructing secret bunkers deep below the Earth's surface. China's underground megaproject, the 816 nuclear military plant in Chongqing, now declassified and opened to tourists, was reported to be most worrying for the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. Libya evaded surveillance by building hardened and buried bunkers at least 40 feet below ground level. Unrelated to Edward Snowden. In 2002, the NSA, in cooperation with the FBI and in cooperation with QWest, monitored nearly all communications in the Salt Lake area in the 6 months surrounding the Olympic Games. Since 2005, Canada has been running a bulk phone metadata, email and text message program. The NYPD is engaging in mass surveillance, particularly of Muslims, in mosques, in social gatherings, and even at home. The department employs rakers to troll Muslim neighborhoods. The unit employing said rakers was once called the Demographics Unit. The name was changed in 2010 to the Zone Assessment Unit to mask the appearance, though not change the actual fact of racial profiling. Knowledge of this program was kept from the City Council. Devices made by the American company Blue Coat Systems, which are used for Internet surveillance and censorship. The ACLU has released a report on the proliferation of license plate readers and on the retention of data from them. The FBI has been pressuring ISP to install surveillance software, referred to as the harvesting program. The FBI has been using malware and hacking to surveil suspects. Reports indicate, however, that hacking and malware usage remains a last resort, and that warrants are sought for individual cases. The NSA collects the contents of emails that transit from the U.S. to abroad and searches them for keywords. The post office scans all mail cover envelopes, outsides of packages, and postcards, and enables retroactively tracking mail correspondence by its mail isolation control and tracking program. France's equivalent of PRISM. India will be building a mass domestic surveillance program called the Central Monitoring System. It will also contract the Israeli company Verint Systems to monitor encrypted Gmail, BlackBerry, Skype, and Yahoo Mail. More than 230,000 people were questioned under the United Kingdom's Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act of 2000 between April 2009 and March 2012. New Zealand passed a bill allowing domestic spying against its citizens and residents by a narrow margin, 61-59. Russ Tice on June 19 gave an interview to Boiling Frog's Post, in which he expanded his previous disclosures. Specifically, he names persons who had been wiretapped by the NSA, namely Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Dianne Feinstein, Colin Powell, Evan Bay, Samuel Alito, and many others, including journalists and political groups. He asserts that all telephony content is collected. Blueprints of the Utah Data Center. The find: the NSA can locate cell phones even when they were turned off. The DEA and IRS use of NSA data to start criminal investigations against U.S. citizens, and their method of parallel construction to conceal the true origins of their evidence. CIA operative De Sousa, convicted in absentia in Italy in the extraordinary rendition case of Osama Mustafa Hassan Nasser Aka Abu Omar, goes on camera describing the case. Insider threat program policy requiring federal employees to report high-risk persons or behaviors from among co-workers, as well as to punish those who fail to report such colleagues. In 2013, the NSA planned to investigate over 4,000 cases. The German Federal Office for Information Security has warned that Windows 8 has a built-in backdoor that could allow Microsoft, and by extension, the NSA, to access many Windows 8 machines via the Trusted Platform module that comes embedded on many Windows 8 machines. Of the subset of CIA applicants whose backgrounds raised flags, 1/5 were found to have ties to either terrorism or foreign hostile intelligence. The NSA has admitted about a dozen cases of willful violations by analysts over the last 10 years. One common form in which an analyst spies on a love interest has been dubbed Lovent. The Hemisphere Project, a secret partnership between federal and local drug officials, and AT&T since September 2007. Law enforcement has access to electronic call detail records for any telephone carrier that uses an AT&T switch to process a telephone call. Records go back to 1987 and about 4 billion are added every day. Officials are instructed to obfuscate the existence of the program by a method similar to parallel construction, in which a separate subpoena is obtained for records which had already been returned by the Hemisphere Project. Sweden is helping the GCHQ tap fiber optic cables and has become, effectively, a member of the Five Eyes, according to Duncan Campbell in a hearing of the EU Parliament's LIBE Committee. He further states that the code name for the tapping operation is Sardine and is classified several levels above top secret, and that the information about Sweden was withheld from publication in The Guardian, The New York Times, and ProPublica. CIA, BND, and the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution ran Project 664 short from 2005 to 2010. Its aim was to gather intelligence on suspected jihadists and terrorism supporters. An American query request for the internal database codename PX contains the passport number, date of birth, and name of German investigative journalist Peter Butchen. The ICLU released a 69-page report on the FBI entitled Unleashed and Unaccountable, detailing warrantless wiretapping. The NSA purchases zero-day exploits from Viewpin, as revealed in a FOIA request. In response, the CEO of Viewpin suggested that a FOIA request also be made for Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop. == References ==